Well, thank you for your courage and for your service to humanity by what you have done in Ukraine and what you continue to do to bring this message to the world community. Your testimony is powerful firsthand testimony. You give a face to the victims. We hear the numbers, but you give us the specifics. And we recognize that every one of those numbers represent a person whose life has been changed forever, has lost his life. You point out that no human rights, rules, or customs of war are being observed. And we never thought that we would see in our lifetime a country pursue a war and observe no rules or boundaries whatsoever. And you point out in your testimony that nothing is done in the occupied territories without orders from Moscow. Mr. Putin's responsible for these actions. You also point out that they have violated international norms. The unprovoked attack on Ukraine violated every condition of the Helsinki Final Act, which is what this commission is about. And then you point out that Russia has violated every international standard and responsibility in regards to conflict. They have targeted civilians. You're before us as a targeted victim, a civilian, a medic trying to save lives. They violated every international norm on treatment of prisoners. Your testimony points that out with specific examples of violating prisoner rights. And you point out that one of Mr. Putin's tools is to use propaganda, false information. The fight against the propaganda of Russia's fascist regime, because this is their primary weapon. I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm going to ask a question that perhaps you've already answered, but I want to understand this. Why were you imprisoned? You were there as a medic to help civilians and help soldiers who were injured. There's international protection for our medics that are there in conflict. Why were you targeted? And why were so many civilians captured and imprisoned? Was part of the military strategy of Russia to target civilians for military action against them, to be imprisoned and tortured, to show the Ukrainian people there would be no mercy to anyone? Is that what you experienced? Why were you apprehended? Why were you put in prison?
Мене затримали, коли перевіряли документи.
I was detained during a document check.
Чому вони затримали мене, я не знаю на 100%, але думаю, що вони перевірили по базі і побачили, що я є парамедик і знаходилась на війні. Для них це вже є злочин.
I cannot say exactly why specifically I was detained, but I understand they checked their records, their database, and they saw that I was a paramedic and present at war. That, in their eyes, was a crime in itself.
Пізніше, під час тортурів, вони намагалися вибити з мене зізнання в тому, що я скоювала якісь злочини, які я, звичайно, не скоювала.
Later, when I was in captivity, I was being tortured, and they tried to make me get a confession, some kind of confession from me about some alleged crimes, which I had never committed.
Їх не цікавила правда, їх цікавило, аби я взяла на себе вину того, що я не зробила.
They didn't care to know the truth. They just wanted me to admit guilt for something I had never committed.
Для того, щоб зліпити з мене образ якогось звіра і нав'язати речі, які я навіть уявити собі не могла.
Their intention, their goal was to create an image of some kind of a beast out of me and charge me with things I could not even imagine.
Це було зроблено для того, щоб зробити такий образ ворога і показати його росіянам. Це все направлено для Росії.
All this was targeted at the Russian population to create an image of a horrible enemy and show them this image.
Я думаю, що такі самі дії вони вчиняли і з іншими полоненими також.
I believe they were doing the same with other captive people in captivity.
Тортурами вони намагаються дістати фальшування зізнань в нібито якихось злочинах, які робили люди.
And they use torture in order to falsify those alleged crimes that people would be forced to confess.
І я вже бачила такі шматки з російських пропагандистських програм ТВ, де люди, яких я знаю, зізнаються в злочинах, які вони точно не робили. Я це знаю, напевно.
I have seen footage of Russian propaganda TV programs where shown with people I know in person confessing of things that I know for sure they have never done.
І я добре уявляю, що вони з ними зробили, аби дістати таке відео.
So I can well imagine what they did to those people in order to get those video recordings.
Це все робиться для того, щоб зняти з себе відповідальність.
All this is done in order to release themselves of responsibility
В цій агресії проти України.
in the aggression against Ukraine,
Зліпити образ якогось безжального ворога.
to produce that image of a merciless enemy.
Наприклад, з мене. Подивіться на мене.
And me as an example, just look at me.
Для того, щоб оправдати свої злочини і своє прагнення заволодіти моєю країною.
In order to justify their crimes and their desire to seize my country.
Це моя персональна думка.
This
Дякую.
is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Of course, that violates the Geneva Conventions in so many different ways.
Женевські конвенції.
Did you have any opportunity for any outside contact? Talk a little bit about what experiences you had as far as being cared for while you were under captivity.
Стосовно допомоги чи піклування під час перебування в полоні. Хтось вам допомагав, піклувався про вас, доглядав?
З самого початку мого затримання я була на той час уже контужена через прильот авіації на госпіталь, чи там міни прилетіли.
At the time when I was detained, I already had a concussion caused by explosion of mines that were shot at the hospital where I was.
У мене сильно боліла голова і були проблеми зі здоров'ям. Я попросила викликати лікаря.
I had strong headache and other conditions, and I asked to send me a doctor.
Мені сказали, що я на це не заслуговую.
They told me I do not deserve that.
Я попросила зробити телефонний дзвонок, аби повідомити чоловіка, що де я знаходжуся і що зі мною сталося.
I asked to allow me to make a phone call to inform my husband about where I was and what happened to me.
Мені відмовили.
They did not allow that.
І сказали, що ти забагато дивилась американських фільмів. Дзвінка не буде.
They said, you have seen too many American movies. there'll be no phone call.
У мене забрали абсолютно все, що було зі мною, включаючи мої ліки, які я мушу приймати кожен день.
They took away all my belongings, including the medicines that I need to take every day.
У мене нема щитовидної залози.
I have my thyroid removed.
Через це я потребую кожен день отримувати порцію гормонів.
For this reason, I have to take a hormonal medicine every single day.
Замісна терапія.
It's called substitution therapy.
І тільки більше ніж 10 днів десь пройшло, коли я вже 100 разів повторювала, мені повернули ці ліки.
But only after about 10 days, when I kept asking for that every moment, I received my medicines back.
І це було диво, бо вони не були настроєні мені давати будь-що.
And this was really a miracle because the attitude of theirs was not to give me anything, not to allow anything.
Те саме стосується моїх ліків від астми.
The same was with my medicines for asthma.
Вони не давали його мені в руки, вони тримали його десь там. І для того, щоб отримати балончик, мені треба було довго стукати і кликати на, як це називається, охоронця.
They wouldn't let me keep that medicine, and in order to get myself a spray of that can, I would have to knock on the door forever until they would come and let me use it.
Слава Богу, що в мене не дуже часті приступи.
Thank God my aggravated conditions were not happening very often.
Тому що кожен раз, коли я турбувала бідних наглядачів, вони дуже злились.
Because every time I would bother those poor guards, they would get very angry at me.
Розмовляли постійно грубо, для них це норма.
Rude talk to us was the norm, but they felt like it was just a normal thing to do.
У мене відібрали всю одежу, окрім того, що було на мені.
They took away all the clothes I had except those I was wearing.
Я мала одну зміну білизни, то, що було на мені, на протязі цих 3 місяців.
For those 3 months, I only had one set of underwear, the one I was wearing.
Одні джинси,
One pair of jeans,
одну футболку,
one T-shirt,
таку кофту
a little cardigan sort of,
і шубку.
and a coat.
Вона спасла мені життя, і через неї я не замерзла.
That coat saved my life because it kept me from dying from cold.
Тому що умови утримання просто нелюдські.
The conditions of keeping people in captivity was really inhuman.
Вони мене схопили в березні.
They captured me in March
Це було дуже холодно.
when it was very cold.
Камера, в якій нас тримали, в різних місцях, але всі камери були без шкла і тільки грати.
All the cells where we were kept in different places, but all of them invariably had no window panes, just the bars on the window.
Було жахливо холодно постійно.
It was always terribly cold.
Нам не давали ані одіял, ані, звичайно, ніяких подушок.
There were no blankets for us, and of course no pillows.
І матрасів дуже часто не було. Більшу частину часу не було матрасів.
And most of the time, not even a mattress.
І ми спали на нарах, які зроблені з заліза.
So we slept on bunks made of metal.
І це теж свого роду тортури.
That in itself was a kind of torture.
За 3 місяці я милась більш-менш теплою водою, тобто нас водили в душову 1 раз.
In the course of those 3 months, I was only able to wash myself with more or less warm water when they took us to showers once.
Відмовляли в будь-яких передачах.
They refused to receive any packages of supplies of any kind.
Я не маю рідних в місцях, де мене утримували, але дівчата з камер різних також вони не отримували нічого.
In my case, there were no relatives or family to come and bring such packages, but there were other girls in other cells who had family, but they could not receive those packages either.
І я навіть не знаю, чи варто згадувати, але жодної зубної пасти, щітки, про креми можна було взагалі забути, нічого.
And I don't know if I should mention that, but of course, no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, no creams of any kind. No, you can forget about that.
Thank you. Congressman Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony and your life. When you were arrested, captured in Mariupol, do you believe that they knew who you were and what you had been doing?
Дякую. Я думаю, що вони спершу, коли він побачив мої документи, ну той чоловік в формі міліції ДНР, він ніби щось згадав, тобто здалося, що він чув моє прізвище. Далі він зайшов в приміщення, був там кілька хвилин, повернувся і сказав, що мені треба виходити, і все почалось саме тоді. Тобто або він перевірив якісь списки, або кудись дзвонив.
Well, when the man in uniform of Donetsk Republic Security was checking my ID, he saw my name and he kind of remembered some information he knew, so he left, went inside and stayed there for a few minutes. He was either checking some lists or making a phone call to get, I don't know, orders. And so when he came back, he said, I need to get out of the vehicle. And that's how it all began.
And then when you were taken, I guess, to a prison after that, were you treated differently than the other prisoners, do you believe, because of your past deeds?
Вони ні з ким не поводились чемно.
They did not treat anyone with politeness.
Навіть дівчат, цивільних дівчат, які виглядали абсолютно як звичайні дівчата, вони просто били.
There were some civilian girls, just plain civilian girls, nothing special, and they were beaten.
Просто щоб залякати, я думаю.
Just to scare them, I think that's why they do it.
Але так, до мене ставлення було особливе.
But of course, I did get special treatment.
Мені дуже неприємно згадувати це все.
It's very unpleasant for me to recall all that.
The troops from the, I think it's the Azov Brigade in Mariupol, were some of those individuals in the same prison as you were?
Мене утримували в різних місцях. І так, у всіх у них були хлопці з Азову.
I was kept at different locations, but at each of those locations, yes, there were some guys from the Azov group.
Do you have any reason to know or believe that they were treated differently as well?
Чи відомо вам щось про те, що з ними теж особливо поводились не так, як з іншими?
Так,
That is
з
right.
ними поводились з особливою жорстокістю.
The Azov prisoners of war were treated with special cruelty.
Так, також вони чомусь дуже не люблять підрозділ Збройних сил України з назвою Айдар.
For some reason also they have a particular hatred to soldiers from Ukraine's military unit named Aidar.
Вони мені казали, що ці підрозділи визнані у них як терористичні організації, щось таке.
I heard from them something like, in their system, these units are recognized as terroristic organizations.
It's amazing to me that and it has been, that the Russians refer to the Ukrainians as Nazis.
Мене вражає те, що росіяни називають українців нацистами,
But the only behavior that has been similar to Nazis that I've heard of
але їхня поведінка така, як у нацистів, про яких ми знаємо.
is the behavior of the Russians, particularly in the incarceration prisons that you've experienced and we've heard about.
Excuse me, was this a question, sir?
Not really.
No, you're absolutely right.
Thank you. Thank you. I yield back.
We're joined by Congressman Wilson, who's the ranking Republican member of the Helsinki Commission in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Co-Chairman Ben Cardin and Co-Chairman Steve Cohen, for holding this somber but important hearing. I appreciate our witness today for her service to those who have endured the worst at the hands of war criminal Putin. Our witness today, veteran and humanitarian Taira has provided life-saving medical treatment to hundreds and has documented critical footage of atrocities committed by Putin's murderous thugs since 2014. The civilized world is inspired by the determination of the people of Ukraine. Victory for Ukraine is crucial in the conflict worldwide of democracy, rule of law, being opposed by authoritarians, rule of gun. The world continues to witness unspeakable acts of brutality committed against those captured by Putin's forces, but perhaps most prominent are the images from Mariupol, where Putin's forces bombed a theater sheltering hundreds, and where Ukrainian heroes valiantly held off Russian forces against all odds. It is critical that the world hear the stories of those who endured the worst under captivity and forced relocation. The evidence is essential to prosecution of war crimes when Ukraine repels Putin's forces and achieves victory. Taira, I want to thank you for your service. The world cannot imagine what you've been through, and we thank you for taking the time to speak to the Commission today. One of the most important mandates of the Helsinki Commission is to amplify the plight of victims of human rights abuses. We must continue to champion this cause and release of those currently suffering in captivity. And I now get to a question, and that is, on February 24th, I received a German newspaper which correctly identified this war as a cell phone war. And the significance of that is that Putin atrocities can be exposed as never before. And so with that ability, you certainly made a difference with body cam footage from Mariupol and a devastating account of the suffering caused by Putin. I want to thank you for the footage that you made. I want to thank you for the extraordinary lengths that you've made to get this to the world. With that in mind, are other persons able to use their ability to record and present to the world the truth of what's going on in Ukraine?
So, sir, excuse me, could you rephrase the question?
Yes.
I wasn't sure I caught it.
The question is this. With the ability of cell phones, you can't hide anymore anywhere in the world. In fact, it gives an opportunity in conflict to expose the atrocities right away. And so are other persons in Ukraine using this ability to expose the atrocities so that the world understands the inhumanity of what is being conducted?
Я думаю, що так. Якщо є електрика і якщо є мобільний зв'язок, вони це роблять.
I believe that others are doing this too. If there is electricity, if there is a cell phone connection, then they certainly would do it.
Війна є війна, і часто ми не маємо ані електрики, ані зв'язку. Тобто, перше, що вони роблять, вони валять зв'язок.
War is war, and you not always have communication or electricity. That's the first thing the enemy does, ruin communication lines.
But again, thank you for the success you've made of overcoming that. Another question, it's really sad that the world has been subject to disinformation by Putin, and prior to your being captured, had you been subject to disinformation. Additionally, since your release, has there been disinformation provided by Putin and to question your goals and your achievements?
Щоб очорнити те, що ви робили, і ставити під сумнів ваші досягнення, вашу діяльність. Було таке?
Російські пропагандисти зліпили цілий фільм.
Russian propaganda has created a whole film.
Я подивилась, і він, слава Богу, він зроблений погано, і всім видно, що це просто поділка.
I watched this film and it's obvious how fake it is.
Але для росіян це достатньо для того, щоб звинувачувати, наприклад, мене.
However, it is sufficient for the Russians to blame me for bad things.
Мене особисто це дуже дратує через те, що все своє життя, всю свою діяльність на фронті я присвятила допомозі.
Personally, I feel very irritated about it because all my life, all the time I spent in the war zone, I dedicated to helping people.
Я відмовляла собі в багатьох речах для того, щоб допомагати військовим і цивільним на лінії зіткнення.
I refused myself many things in order to be able to do more and provide more for the military servicemen and civilians in need.
Але їх цікавить брехня, щоб обілити свої преступні дії.
But their interest is in lies in order to remove blame from themselves.
І, звичайно, мені сумно.
I feel sad about it.
Але нічого, аби тільки правда була,
But
отримала перемогу, аби ми перемогли.
as long as truth prevails, that will bring our victory.
And a final question.
Останнє запитання.
War criminal Putin unintentionally has unified Democrats and Republicans in the United States. He has unified NATO as never before, with now Finland and Sweden joining NATO, with an 830-mile border with the Russian Federation, and also to encourage countries like Germany and Italy to achieve the 2% of defense spending. Additionally, he has unified the European Union, and unprecedented, the European Union is providing aid to the people of Ukraine as never before. With that in mind, what more can people in the world do to assist the people of Ukraine achieve victory?
Можуть люди світу зробити, щоб допомогти Україні наблизити перемогу?
Я думаю, дуже важливо проводити розслідування злочинів російського режиму фашистського.
I think it is very important to conduct investigations of the crimes of the Russian fascist regime
Аби викрити всю їх брехню і підступні наміри.
in order to reveal the lies and their treachery
І покласти край і цій агресії, і агресії, які планують вони на майбутнє.
so that we put an end to this aggression and to all future intentions of such aggression.
Тому що абсолютно очевидно, що в разі перемоги над Україною вони планували йти далі в Європу.
It is very obvious that if they achieved victory in Ukraine, they were planning to move on further into Europe.
Збирання доказів,
So collecting evidence,
визнання Росії спонсором тероризму,
recognition of Russia as a sponsor of terrorism,
зміцнення, посилення санкцій
strengthening of sanctions.
і дійсно світ мусить об'єднатись, бо ми маємо проблему, якої не ставало перед людством з часів Другої світової.
And as you rightly pointed out, the world has to come together, has to unite, because we are dealing here with a problem we have never had in the world since World War II.
Також ми ще потребуємо, вибачте нас, ми дуже вдячні за те, що ви нам даєте, але для того, аби розвинути наші успіхи, нам потрібна ще зброя.
And then again, we need more I apologize for saying this again. We are very thankful for everything you've given us already, but in order to develop the military success, we need more weapons.
Ви бачите, ваша зброя в надійних руках. Ми вправно її користуємось і не використовуємо проти цивільних і невинних людей.
You can see that your arms, your weapons are in good hands. We are using it properly. We are not using it against civilians or for anything bad.
Україна веде війну гонорово.
Ukraine is fighting the war with honor.
І також ми потребуємо системи ПВО.
And one thing we need in part is anti-aircraft defense systems.
Через те, що обстріли зараз стають сильніші, вони не можуть нас здолати на землі, вони хочуть нас роздовбати з повітря.
Because they are failing to defeat us in land warfare, they are trying to destroy us with airstrikes.
І якби ця мова йшла про армію, це було б ще півбіди.
And this is not only about the military, which would be bad, but not half as bad.
Але вони атакують об'єкти критичної інфраструктури.
But they are making strikes at critical infrastructure facilities.
І дуже радіють з цього.
And they rejoice from that.
Просимо про додаткові способи прикриття ПВО.
So we are asking for additional resources, air defense resources.
Але, як я вже казала, перемога робиться в головах і в серцях.
But like I said before, victory is achieved in the minds and hearts,
На рівні з силою зброї.
along with the strength of the power of weapons.
Це те, в що я свято вірю.
I firmly believe in this.
І прошу саме протистояти пропаганді.
And so I'm asking to stand together against that propaganda influence.
Росія, як послідовниця Совєтського Союзу, має дуже старі традиції в цьому плані.
Russia has inherited the old traditions of the Soviet Union in that respect,
Традиції пропаганди.
the traditions of that kind of propaganda.
Я просила би, аби цим спеціально зайнялись люди, які би вивчили це питання, бо вплив на росіян і жителів окупованих територій цієї пропаганди просто жахливий.
I would suggest that more work is done by specialists on that issue, how Russian propaganda impacts the minds of the Russian people as well as people in the occupied territories. It's terrible impact.
Але, звичайно, без зброї все це не буде мати ніякого сенсу.
That said, without weapons, all that will have no meaning.
Дякую.
Thank you.
And as I conclude, I agree with you that indeed the dictator Lukashenko, by accident, revealed, indeed, the aggression was going to not stop in Ukraine. It would go to Moldova. We know that it would then proceed to Georgia. We know this would give encouragement to the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, to go after Taiwan. We know that Tehran would want to fulfill their goal of vaporization of the people of Israel and vaporization of the people of the United States. And so your success is crucial to all of us, and we've got great leadership with Senator Ben Cardin. Thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank our witnesses. The Helsinki Commission, the U.S. Helsinki Commission, since the days of the Soviet Union, has been a voice for those who have been victimized by oppression. I want to thank Dr. Hupko again for bringing your case to our attention. We think that is the only way that we can be the advocates for those who are imprisoned and whose human rights have been abridged is by putting a spotlight on it. So this is an open invitation. If you have information about other individuals that may be in a similar circumstance that you were in, that we might be able to use our megaphone here to amplify their cause, please feel comfortable to get that information to our staff We will certainly never want to put anyone in greater jeopardy, but we do think that putting a spotlight is important so that the oppressors know they're being watched and knowing that we're taking action to try to help them. So that's an open invitation from this commission. At any time, if you have additional information about individuals that we might be helpful in raising their concerns, because we are concerned about every individual who's been victimized, and we want to help those individuals. And when putting a face on it, it helps us get the international community more unified and energized to stop these atrocities and to do exactly what you're saying, to provide the wherewithal so that the Ukrainians can defend their sovereignty and win this war of aggression against Russia, but also to hold the perpetrators accountable for their atrocities. And your providing information to us certainly helps us, and your testimonies today before this commission is a major step forward. And once again, we thank you for being here. We thank you for your courage. We thank you for saving lives. And we thank you for what you're doing on behalf of the Ukrainian people, and as Mr. Wilson said, on behalf of all of us that feel threatened by Mr. Putin's asymmetric arsenal trying to bring down our democratic systems of government. With that, the commission will stand adjourned. Thank you.